Before I begin, I want to say that if there was a really good exhaust shop, a nice custom exhaust shop around where I lived, the Jeep would have already been there, gotten an exhaust, and be back already, and I wouldn't have to be doing any of this. But I haven't been able to find any place like that, so I'm going to be building the exhaust myself. Now, what you see in front of you is mostly a collection of parts from previous exhausts that I've built or taken apart, in the case of those rusty parts over there. And a few of these parts I bought new for this project. Now, I don't have a mandrel pipe bender, so something that can create bends like this. So the way that I like to go about building exhaust is I'll buy a pre-bent section of this off of the internet somewhere. I think this one came off of eBay, so it's got a mandrel bent 90, a mandrel bent 180, and then whatever we need, we'll cut slices out of these bends to make the curve that we need, and we'll weld it into straight sections of pipe. I've done that in the past and it's worked quite well, so that's what we're going to do again here today. And everything else here, like I said, just stuff from old projects. You can see some pipe that I've already used for building other exhausts and whatnot. The biggest problem we had with the old exhaust is that the catalytic converter now interferes with the custom transmission transfer case cross member that I installed. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down below. But basically we're going to need to take this cat, push it back this way, and then route the exhaust up over the cross member and back to the muffler. Now this, as far as I can tell, is the factory muffler and factory tailpipe, which is kind of unheard of around where I'm at. They all rust out, but this Jeep spent a lot of time in California, so luckily it doesn't have as much rust as most stuff around here does. And I thought this muffler was probably shot because of all the cracking and falling apart metal you see on the outside. But after looking at it a little closer, I think I might be able to reuse this. Should I replace it? Yes. Am I going to replace it? I don't think right now. So most of that stuff just seems to be stacked up sheet metal for some reason. I'm not sure how that's fully constructed, but there looks to be at least 3 pieces of sheet metal on the outside of the muffler, and that's only through 2 pieces right now. So I'm just going to reinstall this muffler, and if it starts leaking in the future, then I will go ahead and replace it then. Beyond that, we had a little bit of an issue with the tailpipe where the mounts that go to the exhaust hangers rusted off. There's supposed to be one there, and there's supposed to be one there. So we're going to have to fabricate those, weld those on, and then we're going to have to come up with a section of pipe that goes from the muffler all the way up to the new catalytic converter location. So stay tuned as we get her done. First thing, we need to get this cat cut off of here so that we can get the front part of the pipe in and see how far up the cat needs to go. Now I say cut because this flange is not going to come apart, I tell you right now. A little side note on how funky this exhaust is. So it comes off the exhaust manifold at 2 inches, goes through this, what I assume is a resonator, comes out at 2.5 inches, goes into the cat at 2.5 inches, and comes out at 2 1/4, and runs 2 1/4 through the rest of the exhaust. I'm sure there is some reason for that, but it just seems really strange to me. So unfortunately, now that we've got everything all separated here, I can slide the cat up where it needs to be, and that's going to hang below the frame rail. So I went ahead and ordered a smaller cat. I don't want anything hanging below the frame rails if I can help it. I think the factory muffler is going to hang down a little bit, but I'm not too concerned if that gets beat up by some rocks and whatever else we might go over, because it really will just be an excuse to upgrade it. So we're waiting in the mail for a smaller cat to show up, and let's go ahead and move to the back of the exhaust and see if we can get that done today. I've roughly got the exhaust tailpipe assembly here fitted in, and we were able to push this up high enough with the body lift that it's almost flat across the frame. This lip right here hangs down just a little bit, but it's not too bad. And so now I just need to recreate those 2 brackets there. And luckily on the rear, I still had the factory one that I popped out of there, so that will be reused. And I tried to offset the pipe a little bit from the frame so it wasn't exactly under the frame, because inevitably I'm going to come off a rock, it's going to smash and pinch totally shut against the frame being right there. And really the way the pipe's bent around the axle, there was no helping where this is going to be placed. So eventually, once that happens and it gets squished, I'll probably have to chop the exhaust back to about here, but I'll wait for that to happen to do that. Put the rear hanger by the gas tank all tacked in. I'll pull the exhaust off and do a finish weld on that. Really don't want to weld between the tire and the gas tank too much, so That'll be there. And then the second hanger, I can't find what I did with it. I had the factory one that was rotted off, which probably would work because we're pushing the exhaust up. I don't know what I did with it, so I got to make one for that. And for that, I'm just using this grill support rod that came off of a parts Jeep. It's pretty much just about the exact diameter that the bushings are on here, so that'll work pretty good. You can see I already put one bend in it. Now I need to make the little hoop to go under the exhaust, and that part will go through the hanger. So we'll do that now. We'll get this thing on. I got that one all tacked in. So we're nice and tight along here, just a little bit of a gap between the muffler and the heat shield. Everything else is pulled up as tight as we can possibly get it. And yeah, I think we're just going to pull this thing out, do a full weld on the brackets, the front and the rear here. And I think that'll be it for today, because I've got to wait for the catalytic converter to show up before we can keep moving forward here. Well, there it is with the brackets all welded up. That's ready to go in. I may try peeling back a little bit of this shield or some of these layers here just to clean that up a little bit. Maybe I won't, I'm not sure. Eventually I'm just going to have to replace this entirely, at which point I'll cut the tailpipe right there and just splice in a new one. The thing about the new ones is, usually if you go to the parts store they'll get you one, and it's probably going to be a Walker Sound FX. And those things rattle apart in like 6 months, so even though this one's in kind of rough shape, I think it's going to last longer than one of those replacements would. Catalytic converter finally showed up, made in USA. It's only like 40 bucks on eBay, I think, so good deal. Let's go ahead and get this thing in. So here's the new pipe, all welded up. This is the entirety of all new pipe that we're adding. Welds certainly aren't pretty, but I think they are fairly free of pinholes. We'll find out in a second when I put this on here. Any pinholes that are in there I'll plug up. So we've got the new catalytic converter. This is just a low profile cat I got off the internet. So the pipe coming from the header, or the stock manifold, is 2.5 inch. Comes in at 2.5 inches, and then this little 4-inch diameter cat that I got here also has an exit at 2.5 inches. So I had to neck that down because the remainder of the piping in the Jeep is 2.25 inch. So basically I just stuck a piece of 2.5 inch pipe, a little short section there, and then stuck the 2.25 inside it and filled the gaps with weld. I should have got a reducer from the parts store, but I forgot while I was there, so we made do without. So you see 2 beads of weld right there. And we've got the curved piece here, curved piece that goes there, and then it goes into the stock muffler. So it's back in. I started up the engine, sprayed down all the welds with some soapy water before the exhaust heated up too much. Didn't see any bubbles or anything coming off of them, but the little band clamp fitting I was planning on using to connect the cat to the stock downpipe coming off the manifold, that was not sealing up well at all. I've had great luck with this style fitting in the past. You can see I already loosened it up and I'm ready to pull it off right now. But this one is just, for some reason, is not really tightening up like it should. Usually I buy the Summit Racing brand. This one is a Jegs brand. Maybe it's just a fluke, but I've had great luck with the Summit ones. So I think this one's just going to go in the trash. We're almost done. This is where we're at right now. So we've got the pipe comes over here. I've got maybe probably a little under a ½ inch between the bar, crossbar, and the pipe. Just plenty enough. I'd rather have it baking the bar than baking the floor, so it's good there. And you can see it kind of twists down this way, comes around, goes through the cat, and right on up to the header there. Beautiful welds, I know, best you've ever seen. But I think the only thing we've got left now is to put another support in here somewhere. So the stock exhaust was supported by a bushing that was on the stock transmission mount. So there's a rod that came off the catalytic converter and then went into a bushing over here. So I'm going to have to recreate something similar to that. I'm either going to mount something on the bar up here or do something similar to that. Maybe have an arm come off of here, and then we'll have a rod come out. I'm not really sure yet, so I gotta figure that out. But yeah, other than that, we're pretty much all set. I'll probably throw a quick coat of paint on there. Maybe I won't. We'll see. Kind of tough painting this time of year because it's so cold out. It's kind of just makes it a pain to paint. I think this is gonna be our answer. $4.30 down at the local Napa. 01 to 06 Kia Optima. Yeah, I think it'll fit. And here's what we ended up coming up with. Basically just went down to the parts store, picked up a 1.5 inch exhaust clamp, which clamped right onto that cross member that we installed one of those previous episodes here. Then I used that grill support rod that we were recycling for exhaust hangers you saw earlier. Cut off a few pieces of that, welded one to the exhaust clamp that we clamped onto the bar, and then I welded another section of the rod onto the exhaust pipe, and each of those go into one hole on the bushing, and this is what supports the exhaust in the middle. Probably not the best solution. There's a chance that the clamp could rotate over time, but seems pretty solid right now. And overall, this is a pretty lightweight exhaust, so I'm not too concerned. And as you can see, we maintained our flat profile across the bottom of the frame, which is of course the most important part of any modification going here forward, is that we don't infringe upon our great clearance. So a little bit of the muffler hangs down, but not too bad at all. And here is one final shot of the full exhaust out of the vehicle. So you can see all the shiny new section in there, and the rest of it's all the rusty brown stuff that, as far as I'm aware, is original to the vehicle. Now, what did we spend on materials in this episode? Well, our previous total for the build was $2,594.86. And today we're adding a catalytic converter, a rubber exhaust hanger, and the exhaust clamp. The rubber hanger and the exhaust clamp were used together as a mid-span support on the exhaust system, as you just saw. And the other parts that I used in here were things that I already had laying around. Before beginning this portion of the build, I purchased some other parts, some pre-bent exhaust pipe and other things that I didn't end up needing because I already had enough scraps laying around from previous builds that I didn't end up using the new stuff. So I'm not going to include the cost in that. If I didn't have the other stuff laying around, there'd probably be another maybe $30 or so in here for the pipe and everything else. So basically between these three new components, we spent an additional $53.87 today, which brings our total for the build up to $2,648.73. And that's all we have time for today. Thanks as usual for watching. Appreciate you spending the time here. Always appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe because there's plenty more to do on this Jeep.